Hi teachers, welcome back to Lead to Teach. My name is Sarah Smith and welcome to part 2 of Preventing the Chaos. This is the second session where we will talk about how do you prevent disruptions from taking over your classroom. And remember that you can download guided notes at leadtoteach.com, but let's jump right in. Ready? I'm hoping you can first recall what a disruption is. We said in our last session that a disruption is a behavior that impedes learning. And how does it do that? Either through inappropriate noise or movement. So when we have vocalization or movement of body that interrupts learning or impedes learning, we can call that a disruption. We said much like precipitation on a windshield impairs our ability to safely and quickly reach our destination, disruptions impede our ability to efficiently and effectively reach our learning targets. So that's what a disruption was. And I want you to see if you remember these reasons about why we would want to prevent disruptions. Why do that? We said there's at least 4 reasons. First of all is because disruptions reduce learning for students, right? They negatively impact student achievement. Another reason we said is because disruptions increase teacher stress. Teachers feel deflated and defeated in the face of really severe disruptions. Why else would we want to prevent disruptions? Because unfortunately, they don't just affect the teacher, they affect the students, right? They increase student stress. And anytime you increase student stress, you're going to have escalation. So disruptions escalate in severity and frequency if not prevented and managed. So those were at least 4 reasons we said you'd want to prevent disruptions. And then remember we said prevention is setting up conditions in which disruptions are less likely to occur. We may not eliminate them, but we just want to structure our classroom such that disruptions are less likely to take over. Much like painting lines in a parking lot makes it less likely that people will just park anywhere they want to, right? We're going to set up greater structure to have greater success. Okay, so let's talk about the what of disruptions. Do you remember we said there are 2 main causes? And the good news is that both of them are preventable. And the very first one was the call out. I don't know what I was doing there. I think I was going to go the call out. And then it just didn't land. Okay. We said the first disruption is the call out, which is when students say anything without teacher permission. That was one type of disruption. The second disruption, though, and the one I want to talk about today is sorry, hold on. Oh, goodness. Let me look. Sorry, everyone. Oh, shoot. I'm wondering if I have dead batteries in my clicker, maybe. Let's see. Shoot. Probably going to have to start this part over. Okay, where? There we go. We're back. And the second disruption is downtime. Do you get it? Do you get what just happened? And how did you do waiting? How did you do waiting when there was no task or activity at hand? If you're like me, you're probably like, yeah, I'm not doing this. And you just scroll forward till you get to the part where something is happening again. Here's why I have this picture. This is a picture I took at our local Sam's Club at the beginning of quarantine when everybody made a mad dash to the stores to stock up on food supplies. And I took a picture of how many lines of people there were. It was just, I've never seen anything like it. There were stories and photographs like this all across the nation at that time. And I still remember a caption I read underneath one of those photographs that said, ABC investigates line rage among adults. And it was all about how as adults had to wait in line, they became enraged. And I would laugh and point the finger of blame if it weren't so true for me as well. If I weren't like, oh yeah, I fall into that category. I hate to wait. So the second disruption or the second cause of disruption, maybe we could say, is downtime. We're going to say downtime is any period during which students do not have a task or activity at hand. That's downtime. Okay, so let me give you an example. I worked with a kindergarten teacher a couple of years ago who said the worst part of my day is the after recess transition, when the kids are supposed to come in from recess, hang up coats, get a drink, and go to their reading groups. She said every single day they just fall apart and it sounds like elephants running through my classroom. And I said, okay, let me come in and just watch first. Let me get a feel for what's happening. And what I saw is that she would blow the whistle outside. Students would actually line up pretty quickly. They would come into the classroom. They would start hanging up coats. They would start getting drinks. And then the paraprofessionals who run the reading groups would follow them into the classroom and would go to their individual tables and start setting up their materials. And by the time materials were all set up and by the time students were in seats and everybody was ready to go, the transition took just over 3.5 minutes. And the level of disruption was severe, meaning most students were engaging in some sort of off-task behavior. So we talked about this and said, okay, is there anything we could do to shorten this time? And we decided that what we wanted to try was an intervention where the paraprofessionals came into the classroom before the students, because a lot of the reason the students were becoming off task and engaging in noise and movement was because there was nothing to do. There was no task or activity at hand. So we said, could the paras come into the classroom first while the kids are, lining up to come in from recess? Could they get all their materials set out and have everything ready to go on the tables so that all students had to do was hang up coat, get a drink, go to their table, and the teacher starts? So that's what we decided to try. And even without any extra training or explanation, just making this tweak, the very next day, it took the kids 38 seconds to be started at reading groups. And the level of disruption went from severe down to mild, meaning a few kids still engaging in off-task behavior, but that's manageable, right? That's something I can handle. So let me give you a few more examples. These might be small instances of wait time: waiting for the projector to heat up, waiting for everybody to put their name on their paper, waiting in line to leave the classroom. Other times, however, we might have large amounts of downtime. So finishing an assignment early, and what do? Arriving at school 45 minutes early, and what do? Waiting for the teacher to distribute items for math or writing or science or whatever. It doesn't matter whether it's a small or a large amount of wait time. Do you notice the most common word on this page and in these examples is waiting? Yep. Anytime we have kids wait, that's called downtime. And here's the biggest mistake that teachers tend to make, is that they cater to the few rather than the many during instruction. In other words, I'm more worried about, are the kids going to poke their fingers on these prickly cactus spines than the wildfire coming down the mountain? Because if I am, that's problematic. I should be terrified about that raging fire coming down the mountain, and not so much about the cacti in the photograph. Okay, so let me give you an example. Before an assignment, teacher says, okay, everyone, you should be writing your name on your paper. And students finish at varying rates, right? Because they all have different levels of fine motor ability. And the teacher says, as soon as everyone is done, we'll start. That's catering to the few rather than the many. Here's another example. Let's suppose it's during phonics and the teacher says, okay, next word, spell stars on your whiteboard. And students again finish at varying rates. And teacher says, as soon as everyone has it, we'll check it. I'm waiting for everyone to finish the word. Okay, last example, let's suppose after math, teacher says, okay, when you finish your assignment, you may either read or color, and we could get into the problems with that during another session. But let's suppose teacher says, okay, when you finish, you may read or color, and the students finish at varying rates. Teacher says, as soon as I check everyone's work, then we'll move on. So the problem is we're waiting for everyone to finish in every single case there. And why do we do that? Why do we wait for everyone every time? Here's reasons I often hear teachers cite. First is to maintain an expectation, right? If I say that I want you to do it, then I need to follow through and expect that you will do it. Yeah, that's valid. Sometimes teachers say they wait for everyone to convey value of everyone. Everyone in this classroom is of equal importance, and so I am going to wait for everyone to finish the task at hand before we move on. I also agree with that. Everyone is valuable. Everyone does have equal worth in that classroom. And The most common one I hear is teachers say, I wait for everyone because I don't want to leave anyone behind. If I leave these strugglers in the front row behind, they're never going to catch up and I'm never going to find time to work with them again. Yep, also valid. But what's the risk of doing that? What's the risk of creating downtime by waiting for everyone to finish everything? And the answer is that it slows your pacing. And as you slow pacing, as you increase your downtime, you're going to also increase disruption, noise and movement, off-task behavior. Here's another way of looking at it. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. And we could chuckle about this if it weren't so true. I've seen this in so many classrooms where I see so much property destruction happening. And one of the very first problems that I notice is extensive downtime where kids do not have a task or activity at hand. In other words, if you cater to the 1, you're probably going to lose the 90 and 9, which may not be a popular idea religiously, but in education, this is very true. So I probably just got myself in trouble saying that, didn't I? I shouldn't have said anything about that religious. Just forget that. Okay, so what do you do instead? Here's what the research would tell us to do. The how of eliminating downtime is to go faster. There's long-standing research that instruction delivered at a brisk pace results in higher levels of on-task behavior and student engagement. So if I go a little bit more quickly, I'm going to have greater on-task behavior and greater student engagement, students participating in and being engaged with the content. Another piece of research, one of the factors differentiating between more and less effective teachers was that more effective teachers maintained a lesson pace that was brisk. Well, there's that word again. The brisker I keep my pace, the more effective I'm likely to be. In other words, here's what this comes down to is we're going to watch for 80% of our kids to be done with any given task, and then we're going to move on. 80% becomes our new magic number because I'm not going to cater to the few and wait for everyone to finish everything. I'm going to wait for most kids to finish the task at hand, and then I'm going to keep going. So going back to these examples, ready? Teacher says, okay, you should be writing your name on your paper. Students finish at varying rates. Teacher notices, wow, lots of kids are ready, let's start. And by lots of kids, what do we mean? 80%. Most of my kids are done, I'm starting the assignment. During phonics, teacher might say, okay, next word, spell stars on your whiteboard. When most of the kids are done, teacher says, okay, lots of kids have it, let's check stars. Ready? S, T. Not everyone had it, but enough that I can justify moving on. After math, teacher says, okay, when you finish, you may read or color. Again, kids finish at varying rates. What the teacher is going to do is spot check everyone else and spend most of his or her time with the strugglers. So I'm not waiting for every kid's paper to be checked, every single problem. I'm just going to spot check most kids and spend most of my time with my kids that I know are struggling and move on. The question a lot of teachers ask at this point is they say, yeah, but how do I know when most kids are done? I would say consider having an all done signal. Maybe kids hold up their pencil when they're done writing their name so that you can see they're done writing their name, or they hold up their whiteboard marker when they're done using their whiteboard marker to write the word, or maybe when they're done talking to their partner about the partner task partner talk you've given, they turn forward and put hands back in lap so that you can see that they're ready to move on. So if you have the kids help you with this, it becomes easier to determine when are most of my kids done and when should I move on. Much like we as drivers rely on brake lights to signal for us, what are people's intentions and when are they done and when are they going to be ready to go again? Okay, let me give you a quick tip because this is often confusing for people. Watching for 80% and moving and going does not apply to stating expectations. When stating an expectation, I want 100% of eyeballs on me. When I'm giving directions, when I'm telling you what it is I want you to do, I want every single kid's eyeballs right here on me. And I very often even say, look at my eyeballs so I know you're listening. And then there's a pause. as I make eye contact with several kids and make sure that I have everyone's attention. So don't state expectations without 100% of kids watching. I'm talking about once you've actually started a task, we're watching for 80% and we're moving on. Okay, so I want to show you a video example. This is pacing during a first grade lesson. And what I want you to notice is that the first word is given before most kids are ready, and words are checked before every kid finishes. Oh, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. The first word is given when most are ready. So we're waiting for most to be ready and then starting. You may quietly take out a whiteboard and get ready to write. Ooh, Lillian, super fast. Alexa already has hers, thank you. London, super fast, and Presley. Remy, super fast. Connor, you're doing it with your mouth closed. Okay. Wow, super fast, guys. On your whiteboard, the first word I want you to spell, which is going to start with combination WH, is whip. What word? Whip. Using WH says whoop, whoop, whoop. Your spelling. Good. I see a lot of kids who put the WH, even though you can. Ah, Savannah coded it. Yeah, nice job. Sorry. James coded it too nicely. Polka dot check starting W. W-H-I-P. Erase, erase. Nice job. Next word. Clap with me the word whisper. Ready? Whisper. First syllable. Whis. So of course teachers were telling them to start with WH because you can't hear it in English words. So it's absolutely appropriate to tell them to start with WH. Add your second syllable with per. Per. There you go. Oh, I think this is a combination word because I see, Brianna, you arced it at the beginning for WH and at the end for ER. Ethan, vowel pattern? Nice job. Polka dot check starting W. Ready? W-H-I-S-P-E-R. Excellent. Erase, erase. Okay. So sometimes teachers see that video and they say, but what about my strugglers? What about my kids who I'm most worried about? Aren't they going to fall even further behind? Let's look at just a little bit of research. Research tells us that although teachers often express concern that rapid pacing leaves behind their at-risk students, research shows the opposite. The opposite is actually true. This was a study they did with kindergarten students who had learning disabilities. And in these students with learning disabilities, rapid pacing resulted in increased reading accuracy and on-task behavior. And I want you to notice this was with a kindergarten student population. So we're talking about some of the youngest kids in our public school setting and kids with learning disabilities, kids with cognitive delays. And even for that population of students, more rapid pacing resulted in increased accuracy and on-task behavior. What I see over and over and over again is when teachers really slow down and they try to cater to their slowest population of students, they see disruptions increase, and then they're so busy trying to manage the behavior that they lose the strugglers anyway. By contrast, when they start to go more quickly, a lot of the strugglers begin to catch up. They begin to stay engaged with the teacher, and those that can't quite keep up are the ones that would probably require small group or one-on-one intervention anyway. Let me give you a testimonial from a teacher. She said, last year, Sarah came into my class and helped me increase my pacing during my phonics instruction. At first, I wasn't sure how going faster would make my struggling students learn it any better or how my students were going to keep up. But I noticed that with, and here's the key, practice, my class could keep up. What? Even my struggling students stayed with me. Test scores went up and my anxieties went down. And of course, it wasn't all rainbows and butterflies. There was some struggle and it took some time for her to begin to feel comfortable with this. But again, with practice, this was the outcome. So here's the question. A lot of teachers say, okay, I'm bought into the idea that maybe I need to go faster. Maybe I need to pick up my pace. I'm watching for 80% and moving on. But how do I get my students to go faster? How do I get them to perform faster? I'm going to give you the answer, and I'm hoping you can write this down in 10 seconds or less, okay? I'm only going to give you 10 seconds. Can you write this answer in 10 seconds? The answer is, of course, it always starts with expectations. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It always starts with stating a clear expectation, right? So we know that. I'm going to say to get your students to go faster, there's 2 approaches we should consider beyond just clear expectations. And those are countdowns and contingencies. We'll talk about each of these in more detail. Countdowns. Why would you want to implement a countdown? Because people tend to respond faster when they know their behavior is being timed. And that goes for adults as well as children. Do you get it? Do you get it? Here, I would be curious. I mean, there's no way for me to know, but it would be interesting to know for those of you that did write, it always starts with clear expectations. Were you going faster knowing that you only had 10 seconds to do that? And what's interesting to me is that it doesn't matter if there's a reward or penalty attached to finishing in time. And especially if you're watching this, virtually, you can push pause and take as much time as you want to write it or not write it. But people tend to perform faster when they know their behavior is being timed, which is why countdowns can be really valuable with kiddos. When do we use countdowns? Usually, almost always, it's during transitions. So if I'm going to have kids take out or put away materials, a countdown can be really helpful. Take out your math books in 10, 9, 8, and of course I'm putting in feedback as well with so-and-so is doing such a great job. Thank you so much for going quickly. Let's suppose we're lining up. I need everyone's chairs pushed in, and you're going to meet me by the door by the time I get to 0, 10, 9, 8. Maybe moving within the classroom, it's time to push in chairs and transition back to the rug. So you have 10 seconds to do that, 9, 8, 7. So usually we're doing countdowns during a transition. How do we do the countdown? First, you want to determine the appropriate parameter. So, taking out a math book and opening to the right page might take a little bit longer than just pulling a whiteboard out of your desk, right? If I have to flip to a page, that's going to take longer than just getting a whiteboard ready. So you first determine the amount of time it's going to take and then count down from 10. And you might be saying, well, but one behavior seems like it would take longer than the other. That's true. So what I do is I just am more careful and more intentional about how I do my countdown. So if I'm counting down for a math book, it might sound something like this. Math books are out, open to page 301, ready, go. 10, 9, Lily going super fast. Thank you, sweetheart. 8, 7, Tate is also going super quickly. Tate, nice job, dude. 6, and maybe I'm counting just a little bit slower because I know that that's going to be a more extensive transition. In the case of just taking out a whiteboard, it might look like 10, 9, super job going quickly, guys. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, and maybe I don't even finish the countdown because they already have it out. Let me just note that a countdown doesn't require an actual timer. I have seen teachers who try to be really specific about pushing start and stop, but the reason I might shy away from that is because then it's not as easy for you to control the actual parameter of time that you give the students, right? Then you're bound by the timer going off and not by you adjusting how fast or slow you're counting based on the students responding. Also, 10 doesn't really mean 10, right? We know as teachers, if I'm counting down from 10, it's really probably like 15 seconds or 20 or 30, but I'm starting from 10 because that's a reasonable number for kids. Okay, so I want to show you this video of taking out whiteboards, and I want you to notice how the countdown helps students go quickly, even without promise of penalty or reward, and even when the countdown isn't finished. Just starting that countdown, I want you to notice how it helps them to start quickly with the task. Here are your directions. In just a second, I'm going to have you take out your whiteboard, your marker, and your sock, just like we did yesterday. Don't move yet. Nope. Your hands are still on top of your desk. Thank you. Then we talked yesterday about how you'll take the lid and you'll just put it on the back and you'll get ready to write. I'll tell you what we're going to do as soon as I see that everybody has quietly done that. You have 10 seconds, go. 9, 8, Cole, super fast, thank you. Benj already has his going, Sabrina going quietly, thank you. Lillian, put that away and do it without talking. We're not talking, put it away. Do it again quietly. Let me see who's got their lid on the back, their marker ready to go. Perfect. Nice job, guys. Okay, quick tip is that time frames can be faded as students become more proficient at going quickly. So you wouldn't have to do countdowns all year long, especially if you're worried that that might increase student stress or pressure. Countdowns are really useful in the training phase, but then you can fade them as your students learn the routine of what to do. So here's a video of kids putting whiteboards away. And I want you to notice what helps the kids go quickly even without that time frame in place. Would you watch for that? I'm watching for kids that quietly have a cap on their marker. Oh, Ethan, super fast dude. London going super quickly. Are my girls already done? Oh. Holy cow. I'm adding one for how quickly you did it and one for how quietly you did it. Holy cow. Okay. And of course the answer was to help the kids go more quickly. It meant relying on predictability. We do this all the time, and praise. Wow, look how many kids remember how to do this. So you don't have to implement countdowns the entire year. Okay. I said I would give you 2 approaches to helping students go faster. The first one was the countdown. The second one we're going to talk about is a contingency. And a contingency is a statement of access granted by meeting certain criteria. So you give kids access to something when they meet a certain criteria. A really common phrase that I would recommend associated with setting up contingencies is, I can only da 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 if you da 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 da. So let me give you a couple examples. One might be, I can only let you be the door holder, right, as we're coming in from recess or something, if you're standing quietly while the kids come in. We're not making faces at everyone. Here's another one. I can only draw a pledge stick for this person to be my pledge leader today if this person is sitting in power position. Because guess how quickly kids are going to clean up and get into power position if they know they might access being able to be the pledge person based on their behavior. I can only show your whiteboard as an example if you're staying right with me. So if I'm worried that kids are lagging behind and that they're not staying with me on whiteboards, maybe I create a contingency. I'm looking for somebody's I could show as an example, but it's going to have to be somebody who stays right with me, who's following my directions quickly the first time. Why are contingencies beneficial? Because they are. Why? It's because we want to teach students that they access privileges by acting responsibly. Isn't that true for us as adults? I only get to keep my driver's license if I drive responsibly. I only get to use my credit card if I can stay within a certain limit. It's really beneficial to start teaching kids as early as possible that they access privilege by acting responsibly. I'll give you a quick tip based on language I sometimes hear teachers use, and that would be to consider the phrase I can only versus, okay, then I'll wait for you to da 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 da, because that puts the control in the student's hands. Or you can't, nope, you can't be my example unless you have your word written, because that's telling kids what not to do instead of what to do. And that's being more threatening and punitive than positive and affirmative, right? So I would just caution you against using language that is not precisely what you want it to be. I can only, you maybe can't see this, but I have in very small letters down here examples of when you could do this. Let me just tell you what they are. Read alouds. Oh, I can only turn the page when I see that everyone has their hands back in their laps, mouths closed. Videos. Oh, I can only push play on our video when I see that everyone's mouth is closed and they're ready to watch. Vocabulary cards. I can only show you the next word when I see that everybody is watching with their eyes. Callouts. Oh, I can only listen to quiet hands. Math manipulatives. I can only let you use math manipulatives, or I can only let you use your math tools if you're following my directions and staying right with me. Last one, directions. You could even state it with directions. Oh, I can only give you directions and tell you what's coming next when I see that your eyeballs are on me and your mouths are closed. And you might be saying, well, directions, that's not really a privilege. Like, are kids going to want to access that? But what's interesting about this is I've never yet seen it fail where a teacher will say, I can only tell you what's coming next as soon as your eyes are on me and your mouths are closed. Just like that, John. Yep. Perfect. Yep. Mallory, just like that. Lovely. And then you start, right? Then we're going to move on. We're going to keep our pacing brisk. So in this video, what I'm hoping you can notice is how the contingency is formatted. I'm only going to, instead of, okay, then I'll wait. Would you watch that? It was the N sound, which sounds like just a plain old letter N. We learned that the very first day of school. Oh, Miss Smith, N says N. You're right. But in these words, I'm only going to keep talking when I have kids sitting all the way up. Your chairs should be scooted up, and your hands should be on top of your desk, not in your desk. And just like this row, your eyeballs should be up here. Thank you. Connor, that means this way. Thank you. Much better. Okay, another video, because I always think, show me, don't tell me. I want to see an example, is having kids practice the recess lineup. And can you identify the contingency? What privilege is it kids access by meeting the criteria? Even if the teacher doesn't say I can only, even if I don't say I can only, can you still identify the contingency? Hey. Awesome. Okay, good. JD standing quietly, Layla standing quietly, Zach standing quietly, and Wyatt. Miriam, you're quiet and you're even at the back. Stay right there. Let me see. Whoa, much better. Okay, we're going to do one more practice. This time, kids who line up quickly, kids who line up quietly will get a real recess. Show me your tricky eyebrows. Ooh. Okay, this is our last practice. Go play. Okay, and did you see it? Wasn't it this time, kids who line up quickly and kids who line up quietly will get a real recess. I'm telling them the privilege you access is a real recess by meeting what criteria? Lining up quickly, lining up quietly. Okay, this might be the last video, I can't remember, but getting ready to play a game, there's going to be 2 contingencies identified. Can you identify what 2 contingencies are stated in this video example? Privilege we access by meeting a certain criteria. Since today is Friday and we usually do our reviews and our assessments on Friday, I thought we could do a little game first, a game we haven't done before called Boys versus Girls. Oh, guess what? We're only going to play it as long as we're listening for directions, so our mouths are closed. Here's how this is going to work. Actually, I think I'll tell you how it's going to work as soon as I see that you quietly, and actually don't get it ready. You know how usually we take out our whiteboard marker and we go like this? You're not going to do that. Would you just quietly pull out your whiteboard marker and sock? And then I'll tell you what's coming next, light and super fast. Thank you, Bracken, going super quietly. Remy going quickly, and Benj, thank you. Coraline has it. My back row ladies have it. Connor, super fast, guys, thank you. Okay, the first one was, did you identify? We're only going to play the game as long as we're listening for directions. So that was the first one, right? You get to access this game by doing what? Listening for my directions. And then the second one was, would you quietly pull out your whiteboard marker and sock, and then I'll tell you what's coming next. So what's the privilege you access? It's getting to hear what's coming next. What's the criteria you have to meet? Getting your materials ready. So those were the 2 contingencies that maybe you saw. Oh, there is another video. Okay, whiteboard transition. Do you notice how a contingency can be used even with a single student? So see if you can identify a contingency that is set up for a single student within a whole group setting. I'm watching for kids that quietly have a whiteboard out and are ready to write. Cole, I'm only letting you do it if you're doing it quietly. whiteboards are for kids just like that. Mr. Remy, Mr. Paxton, super fast. Thank you. Maddie, back row already has it. Lillian, you too. Woo, you guys are fast. Okay, did you see it? Wasn't it Cole? I'm only letting you use your whiteboard if you're doing it quietly. I'm only willing to let kids use whiteboards who pull those out quietly. If not, I would have Cole put it away and he would be welcome just to write it on paper, because you only access the privilege by meeting the expectation. Okay, final question then. What is something you liked or learned about preventing disruptions? For me, it comes down to these two questions. In disruptive classrooms, I'm always going to look first at, are there callouts? Are the students controlling the conversation? Second, I'm going to look at, is there downtime? If either of those are true, then I'm going to start there, because I know that I cannot give control of the conversation to the kids, nor can I let kids have excessive downtime without seeing a spike in disruptions. So I'm always, always, always starting here in terms of preventing disruptions in my classroom. The end. Okay, see you next time.